I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It is Tech Talk. Happy Wednesday. You've got us on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com. Thank you for joining us and making us a part of your Wednesday. We are live from the First United Bank studio. You can call us on the Visual Edge IT hotline. That number is 806-771-0973, or you can hit us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Thoughts, comments, reactions from last night, whatever you got, we'll take there. Take us anywhere with the mobile apps, brought to you by Happy State Bank. We're also streaming live on Fox 34 News Now and on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just look up Double T 97.3. Easy peasy. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Porman behind the glass. Gentlemen, how are our respective Wednesdays treating us?
Pretty good. Getting over that hump. Almost there.
One day closer to Red Raider baseball.
Yeah. You
have everything figured out for them over there? You got them all straightened out on rotation and batting order, and
yeah,
because it's gonna be perfect first game, right, against Tennessee. How you see it against Tennessee is gonna be exactly how you see it all year long.
Yeah,
right?
And you know better than that. Nope.
It'd
be great if they're all that healthy all year long, but
yeah,
probably not.
No doubt. Speaking of healthy, you weren't that last night in Waco. Well, we talked about. Well, I mean, how many times have we had this conversation? Of, one with having a smaller rotation, how fragile it seems. And most of that conversation had been like foul trouble, or, if someone, and not just Warren Washington, but if anybody in your main rotation were to get, roll an ankle and be out for 2 weeks, what would it look like? Well, last night what did it look like without Warren Washington? Inside wasn't great. You battled. Came up short. That was one where if you did have everybody, I think I wouldn't have felt great that you lost, but I didn't feel great going into that game even before we knew Warren Washington was out. And you still, you cut it there to 6. They get a big lead, and you kind of find a way to claw back and make it interesting late. But man, the question of what do you look like if someone goes out, especially a big, that was an answer I didn't want to find out, and you did.
Yeah, and that was, as you said, and not that it was any sort of big revelation, but it's something I've said a bunch since the Devin Cambridge injury. Is there's your mulligan, there's your there's your depth. Mm-hmm. There it is. Now it's all on the floor. And that was sort of underestimating Rob Jennings, maybe, although not for several games. And he's not ready to be a heavy minutes guy. He's where he is at his career. You and I talked about him a great deal yesterday, but not ready to shoulder a top 6 or top 7 rotation role yet. And yeah, and I mean, I would have told you that the one guy, going back to the Cambridge injury, all right, Warren Washington, can't afford an injury to him. You can't, and didn't get an injury. And maybe the good news here, maybe the silver lining here is his back's getting to rest. I don't know, but sick as a dog last night. Lamar Washington's still sick. He played 1 minute and that was it. Hopefully all involved. Coach McCaslin didn't travel down with the team on, what are my days here? Didn't travel down with the team on Monday. He got down there yesterday to probably stay away from the team and get rest and do whatever. So he's obviously sick. He was working the every time you saw him, he was popping cough drops. It looked like, during the game, and so he's, I mean that place is ate up with that stuff, and the best thing they can have, it may be a break for them to have played on Tuesday and not Wednesday, so that they can just, get that extra day.
Now, I don't know about you. I mean, my thoughts on this team haven't changed by any means. Would have loved to obviously have a healthy team against the Cincinnati, to have a healthy team last night, but that's the way it goes, and everyone in the Big 12 either deals with injuries or sickness or,
Sure.
So it's unfair to look at it that way because everybody in the Big 12 goes through something like this.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the way you just have to roll with the punches. But I do think you learned, or at least what I walked away with, is feeling even more of that way. Like, man, the fragility of the depth that you have on this team is, I mean, you really are a bad step away from being in a really tough spot. But my thoughts on this team haven't changed because we knew the weaknesses of this team, right? Like, we knew the weaknesses of this roster, and it's really spiked the past couple of games. I mean, I told you yesterday, I thought Baylor, when it's at its best, is a combination of somewhere between BYU skills and then what Cincinnati does well. And they showed it in the second half whenever they pulled away. And you battled with them, don't get me wrong, but just like everybody in the Big 12 who has strengths and weaknesses, you're in a slump right now, or even past the health side, your weaknesses have outweighed your strengths. And that's not something that it's unfixable. I think you will fix it on Saturday, and you will see a game where the positives outweigh the negatives, because we know you can shoot the rock. When you're moving the ball really well, you are one of the more potent offenses in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. And I will say another positive is seeing, he didn't play a perfect game, but seeing Joe Toussaint really remain aggressive after a couple of games that I think he wished he could replay. And going back to his performance against TCU, right? I think seeing that Toussaint last night is a big reason why you were, had a lead in the first half, and then why you were able to cut it back down and make it interesting again late. That Toussaint is a top tier type guard in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Not saying the best, but on that level.
I think the his veteran presence, his toughness have been vital to getting them to where they are right now. It would have been hard to get here to where they are without him doing what he's done, because I think he's the one guy suited. And no, he wasn't good against TCU, and really didn't. It wasn't a negative against Cincinnati. He just didn't do much. But the just the veteran presence is probably a big deal around that roster. He's been cohesive for them. I just I salute him. And I tell you, if you'd have mapped it all out last summer and drawn this all out and said, here's what's going to happen, you're going to lose this guy and be where you are. To me, that the fact that they're still in there throwing punches not far away from a NCAA tournament bid's amazing.
It is Tech Talk here in Double T 97.3. The Juice next.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Welcome back to Tech Talk. You've got us on Double T 97.3, DoubleT973.com. It's time for the Juice headlines with Scott, with Dr. Mike Gustafson and Ben Poorman taking care of us. We'll start with what we have on deck tonight, and it's the High School Fan Zone, 6 o'clock over on 100.7 The Score on Wednesdays. It's Garrett Luft featuring coaches from Friendship, Cooper, and Liberty. Got all sorts of stuff going on right now. Wrestling, soccer, basketball. A lot of seasons have gone through senior nights. Just a little bit regular season wise for the boys, and then it's playoff time. So lots of good stuff going on. Baseball and softball about ready to kick off. So he's got his pick of the litter for coaches over there.
We're about we're at that transition point or overlap of winter sports and spring sports.
Yeah,
busy time.
And then after that, if you're looking for some Pac-12 basketball, UCLA is at Stanford. That is 7:45 there on the score. Last night for Red Raider basketball, not the result that you wanted in Waco. You lose 79-73. Of course, you don't have Warren Washington. He's out with the sickness that has been going around over there. Lamar Washington, like you mentioned, not 100%. I do wonder if you had an open conversation, and I'm not saying this to use it as an excuse, just more curiosity, like what is the extent that it's gone through the roster, and like who still has what right now, who's still feeling it right now, because it's not like even after you get over some of it, it's not like you're just all the way back to 100%. And then on the other end, Baylor talked about how talented they are, and they looked at last night, especially at about the 11.5-minute mark where they just took off. The Bears get a win. You fall to 16-5 overall and 5-4 in the Big 12, right at the halfway mark. So 9 more games and 9 more games of opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. And map away to at least 4 wins, maybe 5, and I'll be in good shape.
We'll talk some Big 12 record a little bit later today. On the women's side, they went to Morgantown. They probably had an even less fun trip over there as they face a ranked Mountaineer squad that outscored them in the third quarter 30-10. I think had a 13-point lead at the half already and then busted this game open in the third quarter. Final score was 82-59. Jordan Merrit did record her 500th rebound, and she had a double-double with 13 points and 11 rebounds. Jasmine Shavers scored in double figures again with 16. But the road woes continue, and especially the road woes that we've seen where you'll have 1 or 2 players have a good night and then just not a whole lot of help from whoever that night is, who we'd call the supporting cast, because it's rotated some.
Yeah, and they've been turnover prone, and boy, that's not a good recipe against that West Virginia team.
Yeah, 24 turnovers last night.
Yeah, they will get after you.
And in the rest of the Big 12 yesterday, you had 14th ranked Iowa State go to Austin and win 70-65. They're 6-3 in Big 12 play. Texas falls to 4-6. And they really held down former Cyclone, who was the freshman of the year a couple years ago, Tyrese Hunter, and it looked like they enjoyed every second of that. At home, Houston dominated Oklahoma State. Not much of a shock there, 79-63. There was an interesting story that came from this game, though, with Kelvin Sampson. Did you see him get ejected?
I only heard about it.
He got his money's worth because he walked they were on the other side from his bench, and he walked from his bench all the way to that free throw line to the ref. Yeah. So as he was walking, it's like, he's gone. It doesn't matter what he says, he is gone. He just had that look on it. He had the look on his face because I think this game was pretty well in hand by the time because, Houston just took it to the Cowboys. Sure. It looked like for whatever reason he wanted to get ejected. I don't. It's like he was making some sort of stance here.
Any coincidence? It's an infinitely small sample size here, but any coincidence to the ejected coaches over the last week being at home when they got tossed?
So we have some comments today from Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah, in other words, maybe putting on a show there. Yeah. Playing to the crowd a little bit, not because they wanted to get ejected. Maybe Sampson more so than because Sampson was in a blowout. Mm-hmm. Baylor was not.
Right.
When he got tossed, but playing to the fact that guy's not going to throw me out I'm not getting this second technical in this crowd and this environment. Ooh.
Yeah, this was two very different approaches. This was Sampson walking up like, I'm going to get kicked out.
It was the old baseball manager going, okay, you threw me out. Hang on a minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or it's Tweeter in Varsity Blues when he just flat out says, like, I'm going to jail. I'm getting kicked out. Your other game was Oklahoma at home, taking down 21st overall BYU 82-66. And that game was tied 34-34 at half, and then the Sooners took it to him there in the second half. If you missed it yesterday, right when about 30 minutes, I guess, left for our show, if you're a Houston Astros fan, probably great news for you, I would think. Jose Altuve agrees to a 5-year extension reportedly valued at $125 million. That'll take him to, I believe, age 39 if he remains the entire deal and, plays out through the contract or whatever. Of course, he's been with the Astros. This feels like a really, even if you don't like the Astros, a really nice loyalty move. Clearly, that's where he wanted to be. Clearly, the Astros wanted him to stay there, aging core or not. He's chasing a couple all-time great Astros and some things too.
That's exactly it. He's trying to, I'm sure he welcomed the opportunity to stay in Houston and sort of elevate his name to the list next to Craig Biggio and guys like that. Maybe get to 3,000 hits, all those things. Hey, one other news item, and this in the last hour or so, Pete Thamel tweeting that West Virginia Executive Deputy Athletic Director Steve Urias has emerged as the top target to be athletic director at Tarleton State. That name very familiar to a lot of Texas Tech people. He was on the athletic department staff in a variety of roles, from assistant athletic director and academics, and later Red Raider Club from 1997 to 2015, I think. So Steve, and he's been at West Virginia for most of the time since then. But yeah, happy to see him getting back to the state. And one thing we know, he's got grandchildren in the area, so I'm sure that him being 4 hours away probably helped a lot. He'd probably prefer that over being like 34 hours away or plane rides away. So good for the Urias family.
Yeah, good for him. It's funny how those grandkids and such kind of help sway decisions.
Yep, no doubt.
And that is the juice. This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line from Jared. Why didn't Lamar play?
Sick. Still sick or getting over it or whatever. Yep. Warren and Lamar did play 1 minute, and Warren didn't play at all.
This on the chat line, more like Altuve. I'm going to go on a limb and say Rangers fan, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I would think so.
A nice loyalty move, $25 million a year. Pretty easy to be loyal to that. Yeah, no doubt. But that's a guy that would be, if he had hit the market, tested, which I'm sure Scott Boras probably wanted him to do, test the waters a little bit more and say, hey, just see what else is out there number-wise. This was a quick decision. But, I mean, yeah, the money's not, it's not a stab in the eye or anything like that. Yeah. It's not a kick in the shin.
No, heck no. Hey, we had a
You got a guilty as charged, by the way, from the Rangers fan. So yeah.
Somebody asking if Gus, Hacks, and Jameson calling the Arlington. It's Mr. Dew. It's going to be me and Jamie calling the games in Arlington. All 5 of those games.
Yeah, Jamie's Mr. Dew there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like Chris Dew. I was like, I got it. Me and Jamie will call those first 5 games because Hacks is with Hoops.
Yep.
He'll have 2 games.
Speaking of busy time, it's busy for
no doubt. And he'll
college landscape too.
So I'll do those first 3 baseball road trips, which they're Albuquerque and Waco, and then when Hacks is back, he'll slide in, and I'll be doing the home ESPN Plus games all year long.
And getting me Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah, well,
that's the important part.
Hope so, yeah.
I hope so too.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast, This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Welcome back to Tech Talk. You've got us on Double T 97.3, doublet973.com. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Poorman behind the glass taking care of us. We'll have the high school fan zone tonight at 6 over on 100.7 The Score. Coaches from Friendship, Lubbock, Cooper, and Liberty. Keep hitting us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Thoughts, comments, questions, reactions, all of that welcome there. We got this question, Gus. Just saw Coach McGuire's tweet. What are they doing to the video board at the Jones?
Replacing all of the technology, basically. The same structure is going to be there. And in the tweet, what you're seeing is a crane basically taking off the chunks of the video screen. It's not like a wrecking ball, but I think they're, and
it'd go down a lot quicker, but I don't know how good it would go trying to replace it after you have done all that damage.
Price tag just went up.
Yeah.
No, but they're taking the electronics, the components, video components, and that kind of thing out, replacing those, that same structure, that same steel frame that you see in the top left of that picture will still be in place. They're just putting the new board where that existing board is. So, and I think that's, the one of the things that maybe it's getting glossed over because right now we drive down that street and we see cranes and steel and structure, like crazy. But one of the things that's going in down on the south end is 2 screens and redoing all of the sound stuff. Because lately all the sound has just been coming out of the north end. And, so I would say this.
Which even knowing why that was the case was still just odd to hear it that way. But makes you, or at least me, excited to see what. That's a small thing because we want to see what it looks like. But I'm excited to have that full sound back too.
And you, and if you think for 1 minute, if you are sitting there thinking,
I've never thought for a minute
all
in my
the
life.
$230 million they're putting into this stadium, I hope they turn the music down. if that's what you're thinking, you might as well just, whatever. Sell your tickets or do something because it's going the other direction.
Earplugs.
I mean, if I'm just saying, and and here's the thing, they're trying to energize all the 18 to 22-year-olds. Not all the 57s and what are you, 30 whatever?
30 whatever.
Maybe.
Whoa.
So,
hey, yo. Yeah.
Put your deal, buy a suite, buy one of the tickets in one of these club areas that they're building down there on the south end, do something like that. But, if you're worried about the music being too loud, it's probably not going to go in your favor.
You could complain, but they wouldn't hear you because of the noise.
You got it. Yeah. 100%. That thing's probably going to be bouncing, just like the concerts aren't old Claude over there with a banjo. Like the pregame concerts are usually turning it up a little bit, right?
That would be kind of funny just to see the reaction, right? Who's Gus and the Crawdaddies?
Right.
And just
2 guys in
the
overalls.
Zydeco band that Gus is lead. It's his secret nightlife.
It's your favorite bluegrass band to get you excited for the game.
They finally asked me to join as the washboard player. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I said fine, but I get my own trailer.
Yep, it's going the
Gus
other
and the
direction.
Crawdaddies.
It's going the other direction.
A crane, just little chasing a rabbit, running away type thought here. A crane is one of those things that I will never, ever operate in my life, nor should I be allowed to, but I would love to just once. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it would never happen. I could never talk someone into it. I'm not going to do the work to get trained in it. I'm not going to ever, I'm not going to have that sort of job, because I'm doing radio. I would just love to try it once. And it doesn't even matter what's on the end of the crane, right? Wrecking ball, big magnet, some sort of claw. I just want to do it once. It seems fun.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they have to be incredibly trained, and they're not up there just oh, this is fun. They probably have a lot of pressure with what they're doing, but also those guys are incredibly skilled, far more skilled than I can ever be in anything ever. I just want to do it once, just once. So if you have a crane, this is my plea. This is my begging you.
Clint wants to
This is me
play.
begging.
Yeah.
I just want to play on the crane. Come on. I will settle for forklift. You have Gus in the Big 12 currently at the halfway mark, except for maybe 4 teams have played 10 games. Everyone else has played 9, including you, sitting at 5-4. Houston right now at 7-3 in Big 12 play. Baylor 6-3. Iowa State 6-3. Kansas 6-4. You and TCU both at 5-4. Oklahoma and Kansas State 5-5. Cincinnati, BYU, UCF 4-5. Texas 4-6. West Virginia 3-6. Oklahoma State 2-8. Now that we are at the halfway point, what has surprised you the most about the conference?
Oh, that's an interesting question because, the thing we've all talked about with this conference was the balance and just the heat that comes with it. And so with that is a bunch of trading blows.
Yeah.
And that has.
It's not. None of these fights are ended in the first round.
No.
Yeah.
One of the interesting little tidbits, I guess, was the after last night that Texas is 1-4 at home in conference games. That's really shocking. Just because of how this league has been with the home court thing,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe flip that. I don't know. I would maybe. I guess if you just snapshotted these, snapshotted these standings to me back in November and said, okay, here you go after 9-10 games, just like you said, kind of halfway plus a game maybe for a lot of teams. I probably would have. I probably would have pointed at at Kansas at 6-4 and maybe said, I'm a little surprised by that, but yeah. They're only one game off the pace. Now they've still got trips to. They're going toe to toe with that Baylor team last night. That one, remind me, where is that? Isn't that in Lawrence or in Waco?
Lawrence, yeah. It's at Allen Fieldhouse.
And they still have a return trip to Waco. I know they're still going back to Houston.
That's a great question, Gus. It's a great question.
Because it really does feel like, and of course we haven't dealt with Iowa State yet, seen some of their results.
They do. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've still got trips to.
Yeah,
they've still got trips to Kansas
their last 3 games at Baylor, return of Kansas State coming to Lawrence, and then that last one that's at Houston. Which and this is not the only game, because I think that final Saturday is going to be so fun because I expect there to be a split championship.
Do you really?
In the regular season, just the way that it seems right now and how close it is. Like if I was going to put money down, just plain and simply, hey, is there going to be one champion or tied, some sort of split? I'd put money on split because
does Kansas still have a game with Iowa State? I know they've been to Ames already.
They don't. That was the one when they first came out with the partners that I was.
Right.
Speaking of Baylor, really, and Houston, I was surprised that they didn't partner Kansas and Iowa State.
Sure.
And I can't remember if I don't think Kansas State has the return trip either, do they? With Iowa State? I can look that up.
It's like Iowa State got orphaned over to BYU or, like some of those in terms of the paired.
Iowa State and Cincinnati.
The paired partners. Like, man, that ought to K-State, Iowa State, Kansas ought to be triangled up there, going all the way back to legacy Big 8 programs.
No, I lied. Kansas State does have Iowa State paired up, but I was still surprised that Kansas and Iowa State weren't paired up.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
busting out the Rick Astley anymore since we broke it all down yesterday?
I did a little bit on the way home, yeah. Because, it's funny.
That's dangerous with your hands on the wheel.
Yeah. Sure, I was supposed to do the way he did it on the first one before the karaoke.
Sir, how much have you been drinking tonight? No, I was doing the Rick Astley. Oh, okay. Go on your way. You're good.
Yeah, I did it. It's funny because I played it, you and I, and the question that I got at Taco Tuesday was similar to the one you like. Is that his only song? Like, funny you should ask. Clint just asked that same thing, and dude had a second number one hit.
And it's like I set it up and you just spiked it back in my face.
Well,
I did not remember that second song.
I knew there was another one, but I couldn't. We would have been here all day. But I dang sure remembered it because that was like right smack in the middle of college for me.
Gus, something we not everybody, but some people will complain about in the sports world is coach speak. And every coach does it. Some way more than others. Some are a little more blunt, but every coach will and you have to, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, you can't just say what's on your mind every single time. Like, you don't have to necessarily go into where every single team that beats you has a Hall of Fame coach and every single player on that team is an NBA player. You don't have to go to that extreme, but at the same time, if you lose to a team, you can't be like, yeah, that team was dog water and we just got beat by them.
Yeah, the closest to that might be the Dolphins head coach. Like that dude's pretty candid. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
I saw something pretty refreshing, and I haven't kept up with Georgia. Speaking of keeping up with other conferences, I can't say I've kept up with Georgia Tech that much other than knowing that they've upset both Duke and North Carolina this year as part of their 3 wins in ACC play. But they did play a game last night, or they certainly attended a game. They got beat 80-51 by Wake Forest. Pretty brutal home
Thrashing,
game here.
Yeah.
46-20 at the half. This game was over the entire time they played it. Well, their head coach, Damon Stoudemire, started his press conference with the opposite of coach speak.
All right, everyone. Coach, if you would, just start us off with a quick statement, and we'll go right to questions.
Got that ass whooped. Questions. Nothing really to say, man.
Well, that's honest. He didn't mince words.
No, he ain't wrong.
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
That sounded just like someone who, and they did go through the ringer, but just absolutely went through the ringer in that game, mentally done with it. And what are you supposed to say in that scenario?
Yeah.
Well, they tried really hard, but we got beat by 1 billion points. We're right there. Really proud of the effort tonight.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Him just coming out firing there.
In the video, this is the other thing too. Like it's not a standing press conference, and I know you can go watch this. But what would be the fun in that? When I could just describe it over the radio. He is like sitting down, leaning like this, like he doesn't even. Why would you want to be there? Right. Why would you want to do that after a game? And that's something that's in the job description. No one's crying about it, but also everyone recognizes I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to go talk to the media after you just got whooped
at home. Yeah, and that's a first year coach about halfway through conference play going mercy.
Whooped. Something else that happened last night.
That's hilarious.
I promised we'd get around to this, and we will now. So Houston played in a game last night as well. They dominated the Pokes, but that was not the story from another big-time home win. I say big-time home win just from the lead that they had. Another home win for the Cougars. The story was Kelvin Sampson, who was kicked out of this game, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I mean, he was walking towards the ref all the like 3/4 of the court to get to the ref. Just the look on his face of he's going to get kicked out. He is there to get kicked out for whatever reason. He was asked, and we had the Mac Road story from the weekend that we've talked about, $25,000 fine yesterday. He was asked about the refs.
What would you like to know? What exactly happened there, and just what's your thoughts on?
I have no thoughts. So if I say something, answer your question, they fine me $25,000. What part of $25,000 are you willing to pay? So don't ask me silly questions, because it's a $25,000 fine if I tell the truth. So I can't. So don't ask me.
So when we talked about this being with Mac Rhodes being the first opportunity for Brett Yormark to, I mean, not like, oh, we want to see him lay down the law, but just to see the standard that he would set from the first opportunity and first time to respond to something like this. And just 2 days later, you have another situation. And this is why I was curious about it, because now it's directly noted, right? I'm going to get fined $25,000, and that's the answer. That is him answering without answering, without the words, right? It's just saying that. Man, what a strange week in the Big 12 world.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, there's usually a reporting process post game. Mm-hmm. There's usually they call them evaluators, but it's really what I think the league provides, or used to provide. They used to do it in baseball, I don't anymore, but an observer, not an evaluator. The evaluators were like retired umpires that would go around and truly say, hey, this, mechanical stuff and didn't hustle here or whatever, all that stuff. But they always had an observer in ballparks to do an evaluation, or to provide a third set of eyes. I got the coach saying this, I got the umpire saying this, what did you see? And it was there only for conference games. Well, I think video now, every game is televised, and so the ability of evaluators to see everything and grade everything, makes that creates that process a little bit easier. But and we won't be privy to this, but it would be really interesting to see Sampson's side of the story and then the ref's side of the story. He called me a bleeping bleeper, and whatever. And that kind of stuff, because that's the thing that it's, by the way, it's fair of the guy in the media availability to ask that question.
Oh yeah,
it's not
it's fair. You gotta ask. That is a huge moment in that game. Like I said, that is more notable than the game itself, than the final, than the matchup of Houston hosting Oklahoma State. Dude, you got launched out of that game, and you did it seemingly on purpose. They're gonna ask about it. Like
come on.
You're not doing your job as a reporter or whoever. Anyone that is sitting in that post-game room, if that question is not asked by at least one person, what were you guys doing there?
And it's a charge.
Tell us about LJ Cryer's performance. No, who cares? Tell us about why you walked halfway across the court to get kicked out of the game.
And it's a charged up emotional deal right there, so he can't go off on it, and that would cost him $25,000. But he could say, my unhappiness had to do with the charge block call just prior to that. That's not anything that's going to get you, tossed. And it's easy for me to say as I can sort of think this through, and I wasn't in the heat of the deal. But again, he's the guy that just got tossed and in his own barn and all that. But there's a way to respond to that and even provide a shred of comment,
right? Because he didn't say, well, I was unhappy with this moment and disagreed with. Like nothing.
Right. Yeah, no, he didn't touch it, and that's fine.
That's like the silent way of going scorched earth, right? Sure. Because everyone in there, it's
better than no comment.
Yeah, he. We know what he meant when he said that. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3. Presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It is Ask Tech Talk, brought to you by Visual Edge IT. One more with us here on Tech Talk. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Foreman. Get your questions in on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. We got this question from Bullfighter Tech Talk. You're given a 70-pin handicap against a professional bowler to win best of 3 games. Could you beat him? The top 5 in the world average 220 a game. I don't keep up with bowling. I'm surprised it's 220. I would have guessed higher.
Yeah. The answer to that's probably no.
No.
For me, yeah.
I don't. I mean, again, if the average is 220 a game for a professional bowler, if I'm given 70, I think my best game in a game of 3 is somewhere around like 140. So even then, I'm probably losing a heartbreaker on my best score. If it's his worst score.
If I was hanging around that deal, then I choke. And that's just, especially at that sport.
How often do you bowl?
Like once every never.
So seasoned vet.
It's usually all about pizza and beer and stuff like that.
This on the chat line, but does Saban even have a personality? I don't want to see Belichick or on any NFL game day type stuff, so bland and dry. I prefer the Pat McAfee approach. I bet there's some dry sarcasm there that's very entertaining.
Yeah, and I think, the people that are close to even Belichick, and this isn't a Belichick conversation, talk about how funny he is. And but you're just not going to see that. You're dang sure not going to see that with him buttoned up as the head coach. And, now he would light up if you asked a question in those Friday pressers in which he was, asked a question about why are kickers so much better now than they were when you got into the NFL 50 years ago, and he goes 9 minutes on that. And so it's in there, and he brightens up and all that. But post game, when when the guy asks about, is Tom Brady done, and he side eyes him and does the, that's not going to happen.
Here you go. Pro bowling doesn't grease the lanes consistently like normal lanes we play on. It's like a putting green. Got to find the line. So even worse for me.
Okay. Yeah, no shot. Yeah.
So it's going to be even worse. That's good to know. This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. I feel like we were playing ourselves into the first 4 out category. I sure hope not, but we need some wins. So I think now I'll say this. As much as I was just saying, well, UCF isn't coming here to lie down. Well, they know that, right? If it does turn into a 4-game losing streak, that's when I will start to stretch over to the panic button because the schedule is not going to get any easier. But it's the Big 12. And this is where I don't feel any different about this team than I did, a week ago. Or heading into TCU's, because you are playing in the best conference in America. And part of that is you are going to go up against tough competition every single night, and you're going to drop some games. You're not the first team in this conference just this year to drop 3 games. And the team that just beat you last night did that, right? And so I'm not ready to say, boy, you are headed for out of the tournament, because you are locked into it right now. Now, if you rattle off a couple more losses, then we will readdress this conversation, and I will feel vastly different, especially because the next 2 are at home. And we all know it's going to be harder to make that up on the road than it is defending home court. It doesn't matter who you're playing. So I'm not there yet where you're going, boy, you were on the trajectory of missing the tournament. Has the last 3 games sucked? Yes. Do you have things to work on? Yes. Are you a perfect team? No.
I wonder what their approach is today, because relatively quick turnaround with some sickness in the room. I wonder if today was like as bad as we need to get on the court. Like, you guys stay home.
Wind sprints all day.
No.
Line up.
Yeah, you would think
Touch the line or it doesn't count.
You would think it would be the opposite of that. Like, hey, fellas, stay home. Or come up here one at a time for some sort of IV treatment or whatever. I don't know. But I because how hard they can push through this kind of stuff is, that's a tough deal.
I look at that game with encouragement. We could have beat them if we had Washington. Also, the refs' foul calls in the first half were bad, and those guys got so many more free throws, which is the difference. I agree with the Washington part, but you didn't have them. I've seen some with the foul count. I do think part of it was, they were attacking you in the lane, and where do you get fouled more often than not? It's when you attack the lane, right? Did I agree with every single foul? No. But do I in every single game? No. I can't tell you a game I've watched, whether being a fan or not of a team and just, being someone just tuning into a random Pac-12 game like you could tonight, UCLA at Stanford, and going, that was reffed perfectly.
Right. I don't know. It's almost like, we should all discipline ourselves to not get drawn off sides by officiating, and it may be decent, it may be better officiating than we realize, but it's just like it's kind of a crutch to fall back on. And it's not just our fan base. Lord knows. I'm just saying, like, sports fans in general, man. That it's respect the process and keep the focus on cheering for your team, or for coaches, like, hey, coach your team. I've never understood that. And I know there's some coaches spend a lot of time working, they call it working the rest, but chirping every time down the floor and all that, chattering and all that stuff. And that it's funny because Coach Knight's remembered for his outburst and the chair throwing and all that stuff. And like, there were games where that dude didn't hardly get off the bench, much less say
those aren't
anything
the ones
to
you
refs.
remember,
No,
right?
heck
And those aren't the ones that are going to stand out.
But I just, it's like it's just so uncontrollable. And conversations and some of that stuff perfectly understand. Hey, what'd you see right there? Whatever, and chirping a little whatever. But to me, it's just if you're wailing on the second possession down the floor, it's going to be a long night for you. I mean, and to me, it's just that referee, umpire, whatever thing is more about figure out what's going on, how they're seeing things, and then go to work. Because in the end, you're either going to be the team that won or the team that lost, regardless of sniveling about the refs. And I love that. Right now we don't have a. And I'm not saying something couldn't happen. Don't get me wrong, but just right now, I don't think the prominent coaches in any of our sports are just chronic whiners.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I'm just fine with that.
And that's looking around the league that I would say does have quite a bit feels strong. Does certainly have some. This on the chat line, Belichick was pretty good when he was the guest on game day. Mm-hmm. Sooner and Lubbock said, need to win this one, no doubt. Yep, agreed. This from Mark from Olive Branch. My worry for Saturday is rust. The recovering players will still be weak and may not practice much this week. I think that's a valid concern. Because, like I said, we're not going to know the full extent of, who, even with knowing who's playing, okay, who's still feeling what, who's just getting it, who's, any of that. That situation with an illness going around is so weird and concerning at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the Warren Washington thing, I don't think any of us expected him to not play, but we didn't. The question was, hey, is that game against Cincinnati? Was it just starting or was it just ending? And for him, it was just starting clearly. We will end with this. We've been in every game but that debacle in Houston.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And that's saying something. It really is. I think it's saying something about their togetherness, McCaslin's ability to scheme up some stuff, and you know, I'm impressed, and I hope it. I just wanted to finish with a positive outcome, which is NCAA tournament, just to go, man, look what they did in their first year, so that it's something that can just be an asset toward recruiting and building for the future.
That'll do it for us. We'll be back at it, same place, same time tomorrow. I did the long tease. I'll save my baseball question. The 24-hour tease. We did it. Thanks to Gus. Thanks to Ben. Thanks to you for hanging out and giving us your thoughts and comments. We will see you tomorrow.
This has been the Tech Talk Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.